this situation with this whistleblower, I have to tell you too, there's a lot of things about this. I find this whole thing sketchy. If your antenna is up, it's because you're smart. It's because you know that something's up. You know. You feel it. I mean, you have this whole thing, none of it makes sense. This woman is not a whistleblower. I don't even know why I'm using this term. She's a Facebook employee she's a progressive, and she thinks that Facebook doesn't do enough to censor conservatives. She's not a whistleblower. A whistleblower exposes illegality. She's not exposing illegality. She's complaining in front of the Senate that the Senate and the government aren't doing enough to censor Facebook. Has anyone listened to anything that she said? I feel like I'm screaming into the wind. She's not a whistleblower. A friend of mine said, well, why wasn't Bari Weiss considered a whistleblower? Remember when Bari Weiss left New York Times because New York Times was so Marxist that they ran her off even? This woman is not a whistleblower. Isn't it interesting? Here you had this 60 Minutes report, and then 2 days later, magically, you had this Senate hearing all queued up. This doesn't happen just like immediately, folks. It requires planning. Don't you find that interesting? If your antenna weren't up before, are they up now? I'm curious. I think there's other things in here that's very odd. This operative, the Washington Free Beacon, has a very interesting piece. She's getting strategic communication guidance. Do you know who she's... It's like they all go to the same place when they do this. This is what I find fascinating. This Facebook employee, she was feeding all these documents to the Wall Street Journal. Interesting. Do you know that she's working with the former Obama deputy press secretary, Bill Burton? Bryson Gillette. There's two firms that everybody goes to. This is like a Sandra Fluke kind of thing. This was all organized. She had her 60 Minutes interview. That was designed to kick off this media frenzy. You had the Senate hearing already lined up. Boom. This is a play in several parts. She is theater. This is Democrat theater. This is a Facebook employee who was demanding, and she was in the civic integrity division of Facebook, by the way. Although I think, as I understand it, that department doesn't even exist anymore. But back in May, her department was demanding that the federal government intervene in social media. Now, she's doing it again. She says they're like tobacco companies. Remember when I said they're trying to Joe Camel social media? They tried to do that with firearms. I have an entire chapter in my first book, Hands Off My Guns, about this strategy. The Joe Cool, the camel who smoked cigarettes. This was back when the people were going against the big tobacco, and they wanted to make Joe Cool seem anachronistic, and they were trying to toxify that marketing strategy that big tobacco used. And they wanted to do the same thing. In fact, Michael Bloomberg is quoted as saying it repeatedly. They wanted to do the same thing to firearms. And now they're trying to do the same thing with an unregulated social media. It is a marketing and PR strategy that has been used over and over again. And I detail it in excruciating detail in my first book. And that's what they're trying to do. She made that point in her testimony as planned. An advance of her testimony was sent to Reuters. And this was all organized by Barack Obama's former deputy press secretary, who works for a big, shiny PR firm in D.C. This, ladies and gentlemen, isn't just a conveniently timed former employee of Facebook who is blowing the whistle on some illegality of the company. This is a progressive employee who quit. And they would love to stoke the perception that this is an employee with an axe to grind. But in fact, she's just someone who is too far left, I guess, apparently. And Facebook's left. I've been demonetized by their people several times. But she's even further to the left than that. And she thinks the federal government should be regulating Facebook. And that's what this is all about. It is a big PR push to get the public to agree and support Democrats in Washington, D.C., their efforts to try to take control of social media. That is what all of this is about. And as I said, there are people on the right that are buying into it, and I am just mystified. None of these people should ever be trusted again. Oh, I will name them. We'll see if we lose first. If we lose this fight first.